Hi, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of GrassRoots TruthCast. I'm Gene Valentino. Today, we're going to delve into a foreign terror attack that happened right here in Pensacola, Florida, when a local hero, Ryan Blackwell, stepped up that day to defend not only himself, but his fellow sailors. We all remember the 9/11 attacks in 2001, when Muslim terrorists murdered 2,997 people and tried to destroy the heart of New York City. That wasn't the last we heard of Muslim violence in our country. The next major attack was at the home of the Blue Angels in Pensacola, Florida. On December 6, 2019, a Muslim Saudi Arabian flight student who for some reason was being trained by our government at our own naval military facility, attacked American service members at Pensacola Naval Air Station. The attack killed 3 service members and wounded 8 more. E3, Ryan Blackwell, stepped up that day, and in Building 633, this evil doer attacked our own Ryan, who took 6 bullets himself. He survived and saved others in the process. We're going to learn about Ryan Blackwell and why he justifiably received a Purple Heart right after this.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
Welcome back to Gene Valentino's GrassRoots TruthCast. This special report, special edition. I have the privilege of being next to Ryan Blackwell. Ryan, thank you for being with us today. A Purple Heart recipient, a man who has received other accolades from the United States government for his actions that started at 5:30 in the morning. I would do it injustice to tell the rest of the story. The rest of the story is yours, Ryan. What happened on that day?
Well, thank you for having me, first and foremost.
You're
I really
welcome.
Appreciate the opportunity to shed light on the situation and the story and kind of hope to create some awareness at the end of it. But yeah, so I arrived to work about 5:30 in the morning. My job, I worked in the International Military Training Office. I was an unrated airman. I had previously entered the Navy on a Warrior Challenge program, and I had endured some training that I was going through, and during my training cycle, I had sustained some injuries, and I ended up dropping from the training cycle, got stationed here in NAS Pensacola, to where I got changed over as an airman, and underwent some surgeries, and then I got stashed in the International Military Training Office, working with NATO countries and military personnel from Saudi Arabia and other countries. So that morning I arrived at 05:30, and my job was to muster the Royal Saudi Air Force and Navy IFS students, and that's typical procedure on a Friday. They would come in and they would start their muster about 0600 in the morning, and they'd have to show up before 07. And get everybody all accounted for. So it's around 6:15 in the morning, or around 6 o'clock you start hearing the Saudis are coming in, and some are checking in, but most of them are calling in and saying that they're unable to make the morning muster.
Is that normal?
And that would be normal if they have a flight scheduled or if they have a test that's coming up. Some are driving from farther destinations and others that were living local on the base or in base housing.
But for all the other Saudis not to show up that day, was it peculiar?
It could have raised an eyebrow, but I wasn't my first Friday, and it wasn't the first time I had a bunch call out, either. So it wasn't anything kind of crazy, and it was like getting towards that holiday stand down to where people take their leave and they go visit their family and all that. So we were in, December 6th. So it wasn't a crazy workload that was in the building, especially that early in the morning. There wasn't a lot of people that were really there yet. So yeah, it wasn't too crazy, but then again, you know what I mean? Hindsight being what it is, it definitely raised an eyebrow.
So we're hearing nationwide from Christopher Wray, head of the FBI, that this Mohammed al-Shamrani was one of the 2 flight students that day in the Saudi Arabian's military air force that was training at your location, in your building, around you. Well, let's talk about the specifics of that day in a minute, but clearly he became radicalized. How did that happen?
Well, prior to December 6th, I don't think that there was the vetting process, obviously they vet them, that they come over, and there was 2, if I'm not mistaken, that came from Saudi Arabia for the flight program. And they had this guy, al-Shamrani, was here for 18 months, so he was at the tail end of his flight program, and he wasn't even part of our command or our building. He wasn't part of anything. He wasn't even one of the ones that was supposed to muster that morning. He was just a Saudi student at that point that was just entering a building that he had previous knowledge of being at for his academic portion of the flight program. So he came in, he came back to us. So he had already went through the whole duration of his program, and he was getting ready to go back. So it didn't really come out that this guy was radicalized or anything until the FBI were able to get access to his 2 locked cell phones. One of them that he had put a round in during the interaction with the Escambia County Sheriff's Department.
Now, we're going to come back to that sequence in a minute, but go ahead.
Yeah, and then they had his cell phones, right? And so they were able to crack his cell phone and find his manifesto, which then dated back to 2015, to where he had starting, I don't know what the manifesto had said, but it was something along the lines of him kind of interacting with Al-Qaeda or having this plan to carry out and infiltrate the United States military and carry out of a terroristic act.
So we're back to 5:30 in the morning. What happened?
So 5:30 is when I arrived. This thing started kicking off around like 6:45 roughly. So like right prior to that, I'm sitting at my office, and there's 2 other colleagues of mine that are in the office with me. One of them's positioned at a round table that's directly in front of the desk that I'm sitting at, and the other one is to the left of me, sitting in some chairs by the door. And the door is positioned in front of me.
So were there 3 in the room plus you?
There's 2 others and me, counting to be 3. And then, so 2 other military personnel plus myself, equaling 3 that were in that office at the time.
And what was this Mohammed al-Shamrani's first contact with you?
So he had walked by the office, and I had 2 Saudi students that were checking in for muster in front of me. He had walked by the office, and he just looked in and smiled, and I told him good morning, and he just smiled and just kept walking. He had on a green flight suit with his Royal Saudi Air Force patch, insignia on his sleeve, and carrying a green helmet bag. And just as any other military personnel would, had his uniform of the day on, and just looked in, smiled, and just kept walking.
So he had a Saudi military airman's outfit on?
He had our green flight suit on with that they get as they go through our program, and then it had his patches on the flight suit.
On his?
Yes, sir.
So he passes your door, you 2 acknowledge each other, but he keeps going?
He keeps going, correct.
Okay, we're about, approaching 6:45?
Yes, sir. So roughly around 6:45, he approaches. He's at the quarterdeck, and I hear a loud gunshot go off. And
Next door to you?
Correct, about 20 yards down the hallway from me, not too far. It's like kind of the entrance to the building, in a sense to where you have your watch standing at, and you would check in with the watch if you're getting access to the building, or whatever the case may be. So we had the watch was on the quarterdeck, and that was around 6:45. I hear a gunshot go off.
One gunshot.
One go off at first, and then I kind of was startled, and the way like time happens in this, it seems so long, but it happens so fast. You know what I mean? So like you hear the first gunshot. I remember rising from my desk that I was sitting at, walking forward, and then I continue to hear more gunshots, and then I start hearing chaos unfold, and then I start really just triggers that it is an active shooter situation, and it's something's going on.
All right, you had not made contact with this terrorist yet.
I have not.
Okay, but you hear a lot of shots going off, people screaming, a lot of commotion.
Correct, and even at this moment, I don't know that al-Shamrani is the terrorist. I don't know who's doing the shooting. I just know that there's gunshots going off.
At this moment?
At this moment, there's just gunshots are going off, and there's chaos happening on the quarterdeck. And I don't know who it is, because I didn't get a visual. Like I said, there was no weapon brandished when we first made eye contact with each other, and I greeted him with a good morning. It was just typical, you know, and then fast forward a couple minutes from there, that's whenever the shooting starts to unfold. And I had just got this feeling inside that our office was next.
So you got up from your chair and made your way toward that classroom door entry?
Yes, it was an office about 16 by 16 square foot, nothing too crazy, with 2 desks positioned in the back of the office with 2 windows behind each of those desks, a door in the front that was part wood, part glass pane. So it was kind of half and half door, but there was a keypad on the outside of the door. And so as I had gotten up, I told the officer that was in front of me, the female, I had told her to...
What's her name?
Ensign Thomas.
Ensign Thomas.
Yes, I had told her to take cover behind me under the desk and to call 911 and report the active shooter.
And she did?
And she did, yes, sir. And then there was the gentleman that was positioned closest to the door, Airman Apprentice Johnson. I had told him to secure the door, shut off the lights, and to take cover.
He did?
He did. And right as he was getting under the desk, we had the TV on with the morning news, and I had told him to cut the TV off, so we just tried to make it look like it was a dead office, like nobody had came to work yet. And he had positioned himself under the desk that was directly next to me.
But the alleged shooter had already passed your door.
There was... Looking back to know who the shooter was, yes, he had already passed the door, and there was activity going on in there that morning. And so yeah, as the office got secured the best we could, as the word got put out to 911 that there was an active shooter, I had called my office supervisor, Captain Whitlock, and I had told him that there was an active shooter and to not enter the building. And then right as I was kind of getting that message out to him, he told me to get out of there.
Okay, so Captain Whitlock plays an important role in we'll talk about in a minute. But now the active shooter, 911 has been called. There's the 2 other, Whitlock and, Thomas and Johnson are behind desks turned over in the office. And someone's going up. Was it you or was it Johnson that went up and locked that door?
So Johnson, the door was open. He was sitting in a chair right next to the door, so he had secured the door just by closing it, and then he went and took cover. At that time, I was on the phone calling the captain, and Ensign Thomas was on the phone calling 911. And the desks, they were L-shaped, so that it did have a front on it. So it was just like it ran along the wall, and then it came across the front of the room. Is how the desks were positioned. So we didn't flip the desk over, but there was like pressed wood as the front of the desk. It wasn't like a steel desk or by any means. It was just like a regular cubicle desk. And so we had taken cover. The Airman Apprentice Johnson took cover by himself under the desk that was to me facing door to my left. And then I took cover under the desk, kneeling behind the desk to the one on the right. And Ensign Thomas was directly behind me under the desk, positioned with the brick concrete wall behind her, to her side. So that's kind of how we were positioned. And as I was getting that call off, the shooter had came to our office and he shot out the glass pane.
So he did come back to your door?
He did. So after, as we were taking cover and the office was secured and we were sounding the alarm as far as getting the word out that what was happening, he had came by and he shot out the glass window pane of the door. and then he had shot me.
Was it a clear glass, translucent glass?
It was translucent, and it was.
Could you see a body through the other side?
You could see a figure.
Okay.
But the way it happened was like it happened so fast I didn't really see him. I just was on the phone, and then I just got shot in my arm, and then I had.
You got shot in your arm.
That was holding the phone up to my ear. So I was talking on the phone with in my right hand. And I had it up to my ear, and I was talking to my captain.
So you got shot in your right arm here,
shot in my right arm, yes, sir. And so I was in a kneeling position. I was kind of like in a crouching, not necessarily with I was just a kneeling kind of position behind a desk, kind of trying to look and see what was going on, but talking and making sure everything else is getting taken care of as far as 911 and where everybody's good.
You're carrying on a conversation with a bullet hole in your arm.
Before that, I'm on the phone, and then right as my captain tells me to get out of the office is when I get shot in my arm, and I drop my phone. And my phone's still on the call, but I drop my phone. And one comes through my arm, and I rotate counterclockwise, and Ensign Brianna is directly behind me. So as I turn counterclockwise, I'm in a crouching position. I don't jump on top of her, but I'm just kind of a wall between her and the shooter, and I cover her in a sense. And I take another one off the right side of my rib cage. Two came into my back, my lower back. One came out the inside of my right thigh. The other one came out of my left hip. And I had one go into my right calf, and another one go into my left foot.
If I count correctly, that's 6 bullets.
Correct.
And did the captain or the ensign get shot?
Yes, so the captain wasn't in the office, but the other gentleman, Airman Apprentice Johnson, he did receive gunshot wounds as well. And one of the bullets that had came through me, the one that came through the inside of my thigh, had struck Ensign Thomas in her calf. And as the barrage...
So the bullet went through you and
did.
proceeded into her calf.
Correct. It went through my back, hit my pelvis, came out the inside of my right hip or right thigh, and then because I was crouching, kind of like in a rotated crouching position, and it struck her in her calf. And
now, what happened to what happened to the shooter? He obviously had clear aim at you at some point.
Correct. So I had received 6 gunshot wounds, and I know the other gentleman in the office had received 6 to 8. I'm not really sure how many he did, but he had a lot that he sustained as well. And come to find out that the shooter had a Glock 45 9mm with extended magazines, which had the capacity of holding 14 rounds, and he was using ball rounds. So it created a ricochet more so than a mushroom like a hollow point would. So whenever—
In a sense, that might be better.
Correct, or worse in my situation, to where it ricocheted through my body, where the exit holes didn't line up with the trajectory of the entrance, but due to the kind of bouncing off of the bone, it created, kind of some lesions that were internal that I wasn't aware of.
At what point did you make contact with this assailant, Mohammed al-Shamrani?
So
when did you make eye contact? In what level of his volley of 6 bullets into you? So
to kind of backtrack, I had kind of checked him in 18 months prior. So when he came to when he first came to America, as far as to go through the flight program,
which you administered.
I only did the basic low-level fruit as far as just getting them acclimated to the United States and helping make sure that they were prepared to go through their educational portion of their flight program.
And this job was part of your transition in your military career?
Correct. I had gotten placed on a medical board due to a wrist fusion for a surgery that I had sustained while I was still active duty. So I got stashed in the International Military Training Office, which turned to be my job for the next 18 months while I was awaiting the results of a medical board that the Navy had that put me through just because of the fusion of my wrist.
Okay, I interrupted you. Go back to this whack job shooter when did you first make contact with?
So the first contact was, like I said, 18 months of the program, saw him in the beginning. I saw him that morning. Didn't know who the shooter was when we were getting shot. All I know is that after I had gotten shot, I had fallen over and I covered my head. And like some of the crazy thoughts that were just going through my mind, it was just like, don't get shot in the head, and it was like, man, you go through the fear of dying, and it's like, I don't want to die, I don't want to die, you know, don't get shot in the head, you know, and then all of a sudden I had just overwhelming peace come over me. And it was like probably the most peace and bliss I've ever felt in my life.
Was it a general peace? Was it some spiritual revelation with you and your God? What was it?
It just felt like you just relaxed, and I just in a tranquil state as far as just kind of, I didn't hear gunshots no more. You know what I mean? It was just kind of like I was drifting in a sense. And
You were drifting with 6 bullets in you.
correct. I only thought, you know, I only thought I got shot twice when I kind of like, whenever I start to come through, I only thought I got shot twice. I remember the initial gunshot to my arm, because I was like, man, I can't believe I just got shot. You know, I just remember I dropped the phone, looked at my hand, rotated counterclockwise, and just a bunch more came in. But as I was kind of laying there, like covering my head and going through this kind of this crazy life experience, you know, I started to hear Blackwell, are you still there?
Now that's Captain Whitlock.
On my phone.
On your phone.
That's still live on the call.
It's still live on the call. The phone wasn't in your hand.
It was on the floor.
And you were a few feet from the phone.
I was a couple feet. So as I kind of dropped it, and as I rotated, I covered her. Then I fell off to my right.
Covered?
Ensign Thomas. As I rotated after the first gunshot, when I rotated counterclockwise.
To cover her in some way?
To cover her in a sense.
Oh, cover her with your body.
Correct, but I didn't lay on top of her. There was just like a brick wall, her and me, and then the shooter. And so that's kind of like how it went. And then I fell to my right side and just started.
And the shooter was still shooting?
He was still shooting. I think he took his attention off of me and to put his attention on the other desk that was next to me. Because I like time happened. Like I said, it's like a warp of time, right? It seems so slow and so fast at the same time. And in that experience, like as I was kind of drifting and I heard that phone call, it just really brought me back to like, I'm a wrestler. You know, I wrestled my whole life. I wrestled in college. I grew up wrestling. I own a wrestling facility now. And it's like one of the things like in wrestling, like the third period, right? It's that gut check moment to where you're tired and you really put your all into trying to defeat this opponent. And maybe you're on bottom and you got to get up, right? And that's where my mind kind of went, was like, you got to get up, Ryan. You got to get up. And so I crawled to my phone, and as I picked up my phone,
you were talking to Captain Whitlock was still on the phone.
He heard all the shit.
Did he hear the gunfire?
He heard the gunfire. He heard everything unfold.
Did you know that he stepped into action to do something to help you?
I just had a feeling, just because of how like the brotherhood works with the military, that he wasn't going to leave me hanging. You know.
Well, and I think that probably saved your life in terms of timing.
Right, and you know, being an officer in the Marine Corps, he just like any officer, he's held to a high standard, and you know, he responded without question, you know, and he really stepped up and did what I hope any great leader would do, you know. And as I had picked up this phone and I just said, sir, I did a visual. It's like two things are happening at once. I see Ensign Thomas mouth to me that she's been shot in her leg. Airman Apprentice Johnson is, you know, he's kind of like screaming agonizing pain because his right leg is broken.
It was broken.
It was riddled with gunshots. His whole right side was riddled with gunshots, and
it was more than one bullet.
He had sustained multiple gunshot wounds as well. And so as I did the visual of the room, I had told Captain Whitlock, sir, we've all been hit. I'm gonna get us out of here and I'll call you back. And I just put the phone in my pocket. At that point, we have no more gunfires going on. Everything is kind of settled, and I just got up and.
Well, wait a minute now. What happened to the assailant? Where did he?
He had walked past our office. So he had left our office. And
after he unloaded?
Correct. He had kind of like unloaded or just about unloaded. I'm not 100% sure, but I know that he had put a lot of rounds into our office and then left our space, and had carried on down probably like another 20 feet or so from our office. During that time, that's whenever I was on the phone. As soon as I got off the phone with Captain Whitlock, I went to the back window, which had like a floor AC unit that was vented out of the window.
Well, that's the question. How'd you get out of there?
Right. So I just remember telling myself I'm fast, and to be honest with you, in that moment.
Wait a minute. You've got 6 bullets in you, and you're working at the back window.
Right. I only thought I had gotten shot twice. My arm and my leg were the two that I felt really bad. Like I felt my arm was completely paralyzed, my right arm. Like it completely just incapacitated the arm. I couldn't use it at all. It was just dangling. And then I felt like a big hole in the back of my right leg. And so as I got to the window, I used my left arm and I removed the tubing and the plate that had the AC unit bent out of the window. I unlocked the window and I removed the AC unit. And the window.
You removed the AC unit.
It was a floor unit that had a hose that ducted out of the window, so it wasn't an impossible task to do as far as removing that portion of it. Being that it was an older building, the windows weren't super well sealed or to push up, So as I unlocked it and I removed that the AC unit part that was ducted out of the window, it slid down. And so there's just a little lip, and I was trying to get my fingers under it, and I couldn't use my right arm. I'm right hand dominant, I'm using my left hand, and I'm trying all my might to get this window up. And it was like that moment in time, I thought I was gonna get shot again because I was taking too long to get the window open. And in my head, when I had jumped up, I had told myself I'm fast. I just told you I'm fast, I can get it, I'm fast. And then so I got to the window and then I started I wasn't panicking. I stayed calm, cool, and collect, but I felt like I was taking too long. So I started ushering for help from the other two, and then they had came over, and between the three of us, we were able to get the window lifted. And it was about a 7-foot drop, give or take, into some bushes. We were on an elevated first level, so we were able to kind of get up and over the window. I exited the office first, and I landed in the bushes. Ensign Thomas had then helped lower Airman Johnson down to me, and then she had exited the building. And then, so that was kind of our first hurdle that we had gotten through, but it wasn't the last one, needless to say. But we were able to get ourselves out of that situation and then start to look for what needs to happen next.
All right, time out. For those just joining us, we're with Ryan Blackwell, and every time I hear this story, it gets more emotional to me and more profound in the way Ryan explains it. Ryan Blackwell is a Purple Heart recipient. Ryan Blackwell was there at 5:30 in the morning when the action started, not too long later. And now you've just popped out of the window, the three of you, maybe 15, 20 minutes has gone by. You don't know what happened to the assailant. You don't know if he's dead or not, right?
Right, so how everything unfolded kind of with my story was once we had exited the building, there was no first responders that were there. There was no security. It had just happened. And it continued to go on for 15 more minutes. So within that I was at the start of the 15 minutes. So I was able to remove us from the office, and with the help of my office mates, we were able to do what we were supposed to do and get out of there. As we leaned in the bushes, there's a building about 110 yards across the street, and it's called the Navy Yard Eatery, and it was right next to the library, and it was known for having breakfast items or lunch items, and it was a little hot food bar where you could go, and they had a kitchen staff.
And how far away was that?
About 110 yards. So it was directly across from where I was at. So I see two gentlemen that were standing outside those staircase that goes into that building right when we had exited the office, and I told Airman Johnson, Airman Prince Johnson had gotten up when we all had gotten up, and I took him. I put his arm around my shoulder, and he had his leg was broken. I put my right arm on top of my head to keep elevating it, to kind of get it out of my way too. So it was just dangling, and I helped, and we ushered ourselves over to that building, and then.
So he's helping you hold your arm?
No, I'm helping hold him up, and I'm holding my own arm up on top of my head. So I have my arm like this on top of my head.
Hold on. Your fitness going back to your wrestling days from college must have something to do with your ability, your stamina. You've got 6 bullets inside you. You jumped out of a window. I wouldn't say 2 stories, but it was more than 1 story. It was an elevated 7 feet. You're now working with Airman Johnson to go over 100 yards away to the concessionary mess hall type of hallway.
Correct.
What happened to Ensign Thomas?
So as we departed, she saw, I think, a base security that was at the chapel. And so she had she didn't come with us. She went to the chapel. So that's where we had gotten separated. And I just knew that I needed to start first aid. I knew that the gunshot wounds I had sustained weren't good. I didn't know the extent of any of them. I just knew I needed to start first aid. I needed to get help. And I didn't need to be in that spot because that was a bad spot to be at, right? So I needed to get out of there. I needed to get cover. I needed to get help. And so as we made this this trek across this like lawn to this other building, as soon as we get inside of the building, I'm telling these guys active shooter. We get inside the building and it's all glass windows in their lobby area. And as soon as we enter the building, Airman Prince Johnson falls on the floor to my left. So we enter the building, he just falls on the floor. And I just told him, active shooter. I said, where's the back door? I said, you need to secure this building and get out of the lobby, is what I told him, because it's all glass windows. I said, where's the back door? And then they said, come to the kitchen. So we get to the kitchen, and I told him, I said, get some towels. I said, get them up, get towels, start pressuring his wounds. It's like what I told him to do. And I said, I need to catch my breath, is what I told him. And I was like, I'm going to call my wife. So I called my wife real quick. As soon as I got over there, and I just told her, I said, Carly, I've been shot. Carly, yes, sir. Yep. I told her, I said, I've been shot. I'm trying to get myself to the hospital. I just wanted to tell you.
Did she think you were joking too?
She didn't think I was serious at first because of just how calm I was, like telling her, and I was just trying to just like let her know. I told her I loved her, and I told her to call my family and tell them I love them, and I'd be in touch.
I want to come back to Carly's point of view on this at some point, but keep going.
Yeah, so I had hung up the phone after that, and we had started, and then I got back on my phone and called Captain Whitlock, and I told him, I said, sir, we need a ride. I'm at the Navy Yard Eatery, and he said, I'm on my way, and he was already on base.
He was already on base.
He was already on base, and he said, I'm on my way, and I just remember telling him, I was like, you can't come down, the main drag, you got to come on the back. We'll be on the back side of this building waiting for you. And so he's like, roger that, and on. He continues, and I get off the phone with him, and I'm kind of navigating myself through the building. I'm like, where's the back door? I got my ride coming to the back of this building, like, where's the back door at? And as I'm walking, I kind of start to black out a little bit, like I lose my vision. And it's due to the rapid blood loss that I have. And mind you, I only think I got shot twice. I don't know I got shot 6 times yet. So I'm thinking the immediate resolution is my arm. I thought that was the big deal, right? And so I had sat down, elevated my feet, and I'm like trying to like hyperventilate, like to get oxygen back in my blood. And then my vision starts to come back, and I remember seeing my bootlaces, and I told the office, the kitchen staff there, I said, hey, get a knife, I'm gonna cut my laces out. Now, I'm glad I didn't do that because shoestring isn't the best thing to use for a tourniquet. So as I was kind of like making that statement to them about to cut my shoestrings out, I had remembered I had my belt. And I said, oh, I got my belt, help me get my belt off. And so I had made a tourniquet on my arm with my belt.
This is before Whitlock arrives.
This is as I get off the phone and waiting for him to get there, I had to.
With Johnson at your side.
With Johnson there, they're pressuring his wounds, and I'm making a tourniquet on my own arm with my belt.
Okay, we're approaching about 30 minutes into this ordeal now.
No, this is quick. So the whole thing, my whole story is 27 minutes long. So everything was like kind of.
Rapid fire here.
Yeah, it was quick. It was quick, and at times seems like it was like longer, but everything happened quick. So as I'm like making the tourniquet and we're going to get out of the building, Captain Whitlock shows up, and we put Airman Apprentice Johnson in the back seat, and I walk around to the front, and Captain Whitlock then transports us to the front gate, and he calls 911 and lets them know like I'm transporting 2 wounded airmen, 2 wounded sailors, and they said the ambulance will be at the front gate, get them to the front gate. Was
the ambulance at the front gate?
They weren't. It was such a chaotic situation as you could imagine, and especially with that early morning rush hour traffic for everybody going to work, it was hard to get the ambulance and all that through that traffic. And I just remember as we pulled up, they said it was going to be like a 20-minute wait for the ambulance, and that wasn't something that we could do. And so we had gotten out of the car, and I remember Captain Whitlock saying, like, "Can one of you guys," talking to the deputies at
Escambia County Sheriff's Office,
correct? Can you transport, or I'll take them? And then so like we're trying to find a ride, and they're like, no at first or whatever. And then, so Captain Welllock gets out, I get out. We get Airman Johnson out and put him in the back of the pickup truck. And then one of the police, the deputies, comes over and starts triaging, helping sustain his injuries and stop the blood loss on him. And I'm just going around trying to find a ride. I'm just telling him, I need a ride. And then a sheriff comes up, Deputy Robert Green. And
Escambia County.
Escambia County office Deputy Robert Green comes up and he tells me, you're not going to die on my watch. Get in the back of my cruiser.
You're not going to die on my watch.
Yep. He said, get in the back of my cruiser. And yeah, so like I
What happened to Johnson?
That's where we had departed from there. So like he ended up, he was getting worked on in the back of the pickup truck, and then so once he was getting taken care of, I had started walking around trying to find a ride. And then that's when Deputy Green had told me, he was going to transport me. And he said, get in the back of his cruiser.
Did you call your wife yet?
Not yet. So like I had opened the door to get into the back of the cruiser, and there was another base security officer that was in the back seat, and he had been shot in the leg. And he was experiencing rapid blood loss on his leg in the back seat of the cruiser. So as I entered the car, I entered from the passenger side on the back. I noticed his leg was bleeding pretty bad, and so I put my left elbow in his leg to stop his leg
Wait a minute.
from
You
bleeding.
put your left elbow into his leg.
Correct. So it was just
Did it work? Did it?
It worked, yeah, and it was like one of the things I told him, I was like, I'll help you.
No,
you help
I
me.
thought you were encumbered with a shot in the arm, not to mention the rest of your body.
Right, so my left arm was fine, my right arm was banged up, so I was able to put my left elbow in his leg, and I still had my right arm elevated, and I had my belt kind of levered around the back of my neck so I could pull hard.
As a tourniquet.
As a tourniquet,
Yeah.
and I just kind of created a lever system just here and levered it around the back of my neck, and I was leaning on him with my left elbow, and I just told him, pull on my belt, because I had to let go with my left hand of my belt, and I couldn't pull on it because I was plugging his leg. And I just told him, I said, dude, just keep pulling on this belt. And I said, I'm going to plug your leg and just keep pulling on this belt. And then as we were rolling, I just remember I called my wife while I was in the cruiser.
Carly.
I did, yep. And she didn't answer because she was calling my mom. So that's how fast all this went down. Was like, I called her, and then I remember like as we were rolling down the road, Deputy Green had just said, we got him. That's what he said. He's like, we got him.
So you're en route to Baptist Hospital.
To Baptist.
And you're in the back seat of his car.
With another base security officer.
So the other base security officer was assisting you.
We were helping each other. So I was plugging his leg and he was pulling on my belt.
Okay.
And then like as we were rolling, like we're doing that in the back seat, Deputy Green is just flying down the highway to get us to the hospital. And he just comes across the dispatch that the threat had been neutralized, and he just told us that we got him. And the first thing that came to my mind, I just said, was it a Saudi flight student? And he said, yes. And then it confirmed that they didn't even have to show me or tell me. For some reason, like seeing that guy smile at me that morning, and then just like I never saw who shot me. I never saw any of that, but for some reason that it was just like I had the inclination that something was about to happen before it happened. You know what I mean? And
well, the news report showed 2 bullet holes in the head, and one to one shoulder and one to the other shoulder. Let's talk about how he was actually taken down. But was the shot of the dead body the person that said hello to you that morning?
Yeah. So that was the gentleman. That was the guy that did take lives that day and wound a lot of others. And kind of like during that ordeal, the SWAT team had came in and had neutralized them. So like right whenever that had happened, and mind you, a lot of this stuff, I know a lot of knowledge on the topic now, just 'cause it's been almost 5 years now. But at that general time, I was just focused on what I needed to do to get healthy, right? And so like I needed to get to a hospital first,
Yeah.
So like as we're like kind of rolling, he told us we got him. I remember calling my father, who's a retired Navy chief as well. He served 22 years as a corpsman. So he was Greenside.
Bless him for his service.
Yeah, so like I gave him a call and I just told him, what had happened, and then like right when I called him, we were pulling into Baptist. So like the whole time this is going on, I'm making these phone calls. The moment I call Captain Whitlock, right when I tell him I have an active shooter, to the moment I call my dad arriving at the hospital, 6:46 was the first call I logged, 7:13 was the last call I logged. So 27 minutes was the duration of time that it took me to get myself from the moment I got shot to the hospital.
Okay, time out right there. Let's talk about the hospital chapter in just a second. But before we get there, the active shooter terrorist was neutralized. But 3 active Navy military guys were dead that day.
Correct.
Talk about others who died.
Yeah, we had...
So when you heard that other gunfire, there's a pretty strong logical assumption that those bullets were deadly on those rounds.
Yeah, once you can't tell bullets to come back once they leave a gun. You know, it's gonna go to where the intention of where it's being directed, right? So, we lost 3 lives that day.
3 military active duty.
3 active duty, 1 officer, 2 enlisted personnel. The officer was the captain of the rifle team. Ensign Watson was the captain of the rifle team at the Naval Academy, expert marksmanship, unarmed. He wasn't equipped with a weapon that morning, and he was the officer of the watch. We had 2 other enlisted personnel was Hatham and Cameron Walters. Those 2 guys were young boys in the Navy, just fresh into it, recent high school graduates, just starting their careers.
Starting their career in Pensacola.
Yeah, life.
And then you had about 8 others, right?
We did. There's a total of 11. We had the 3 in my office that were all wounded, including myself, counting 3. There was another military personnel that was wounded. She was on the 2nd deck of the building, and then there was a retired GS position worker, government position worker. She has a really remarkable story of overcoming, and her testimony is super powerful of what she experienced that day as well. So her, and then we had 3 of the deputies or 2 deputies and 1 of the base security officers that were wounded as well. So totaling 11 lives that were immediately impacted, and not to count how that branches off to the families and loved ones of those that were lost, and the lives that were never lived. So there was more.
So it's you plus 7 others that survived.
Correct. There's 8 of us, or there's 11 in total. 8 of us were able to mend from our wounds
and 3
press forward.
Navy military active duty enlisted.
One officer and 2 enlisted.
1 officer and 2 enlisted.
Correct.
We're going to do another episode sometime, except you will be part of the team of that 11, well, of that 8, that tells the story in sort of a roundtable setting.
Yeah, even the 3 lives that were lost, their stories are powerful in themselves of what they were able to do in their last moments, and kind of like, as we're talking about true leadership and what it means to be an officer in our military, and what Ensign Watson was able to do, after receiving gunshot wounds, was a truly remarkable feat in itself too, and he was able to kind of sound the alarm, and Hatham, as he came in, he's the one who confronted the shooter, so he came into the building and confronted the shooter, and
Who shot the shooter?
The SWAT team did.
The Escambia County SWAT team. Now hold on. So within 27 minutes, you're being informed by a deputy in the front seat on your way to the hospital that the shooter has been neutralized.
Correct. It was about 15 minutes in, so we're about halfway through our trip to get to the Baptist, and he has notified us to the duration of events of as far as how much hate and contempt was brought about. It lasted 15 minutes from that moment where the 3 lives were lost to where they were able to neutralize. And
the Escambia County SWAT team was on site within 15 minutes.
Yes, sir. They responded. And it did as if they were trained to do, and they came in there and went to work, and took care of the problem.
Well, we certainly commend your heroism, but I'd be at fault and remiss if I didn't acknowledge the Escambia County SWAT team.
100%.
They
Those
really
guys are
neutralized,
solid.
they probably saved additional lives that, in addition to what you saved. And,
No, they did.
Sometimes the true heroes are unsung and go often unnoticed. And we want to make sure we acknowledge everybody. So we're 27 minutes in. The deputy of Escambia County has you in the front seat. You're in the back seat with
A base security officer.
a base security officer who you were helping with his wound as he was helping with yours.
Correct.
You leave you come on to Baptist Hospital. I'm guessing at that hour in the morning there must have been a shift change.
Correct. So that morning, like it was a 7:13 arrival, and they had just experienced a shift change. So to our benefit, there was double the nurses and double of the doctors. And how that was able to play out that day, of all days, right? That was that was super helpful. And we pull up, and as soon as we pulled under the little overpass, I opened the door and I got out and I walked into the hospital. And they were just looking at me, and they're just telling me I had to lay down on one of the gurneys, and I was just telling them like I had a gunshot in the back of my leg. I can't sit. I wasn't being combative or anything like that. I just walked in, and I think they're just amazed that I walked in. And
Wait a minute. Almost a half hour now has gone by. You're walking into a hospital with the 6 bullets in you.
Correct. Yeah, I was running on a cocktail of adrenaline and whatever else,
It must have been a cocktail of something, because I don't know how. I commend you, sir, for being the stamina and the training speaks for itself. Keep going.
Yeah. So as I walked in, they ended up wheeling me into a room with, it's kind of like how Hollywood depicts it, as far as the metal slab and the table, and they set me on and they just cut all my clothes off, and they just started kind of like counting, like I got one here, and I was like, I got shot twice, and then it just kept like an echo, like I got one here, and then I was like, I don't have my wallet because I left it at the office. I was like, I'm allergic to this, you know what I mean? This is my DOD, here's my social. Like I didn't know what information they needed from me, but I'm trying to tell them all this stuff, and because they have no way of knowing it if I don't tell them, and then they're kind of looking me over, then they say, okay, we need a CT scan right now. And they rolled me into a CT scan. I remember one of the technicians was just telling me everything's gonna be all right. And I went through there and then rolled into ICU, and I found out.
Did you see your wife before you went into ICU?
So I went to ICU prior to, because I had to wait for the results of the CT scan. So they were able to, it seemed like forever that I was in there, but that also happened pretty fast too. So I had called her, she was on her way already to the hospital. And then once I got into ICU, that's where I found out I got shot 6 times. And my wife actually I didn't know I had 6 yet. I just remember there was a lot. And then I had the CT scans, and that was going to confirm kind of how this had went. So I'm sitting there, and I start to think like, man, I was supposed to leave work today at like 12 and go meet with the high school wrestling team. And I'm coaching their first tournament of the season. They're waiting for me at Tiger Point Walmart, and I'm sitting in ICU right now. I was like, I better call the coach, my buddy Austin Elliott. I was like, I better call him and tell him I'm not going to be able to make the match, and good luck.
So Austin got the news from you about what just happened.
Correct.
Was he bewildered? Did he believe it really happened, or were you pulling his leg?
Yeah, it was, I think, just the way I was able just to stay calm, cool, and collect throughout the whole duration, and really just focus on the task at hand, not necessarily this I don't know, I just knew anytime I was communicating, anything was clear, and it wasn't rattled or had a high frequency to it, it was just kind of even keeled. And then I think that kind of bamboozled him a little bit as much as it did my wife or anybody else. And I told him, what had happened, just because of most time you would think a different reaction, right?
We bumped into Austin Elliott before we started our program today. And so we're going to break away here and hear a few direct comments from Austin Elliott, his buddy, his Marine buddy who worked with him over the years, and now in his wellness fitness operation. But prior to that, they were buddies working together. Listen to what Austin has to say. We're with Austin Elliott, Ryan's Marine buddy. And thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. You and Ryan go back some time.
We do a few years, a little bit before the incident, but yeah, we go back.
It's always nice to hear someone talk about the story, but it's also nice to hear it from someone else's point of view too. What happened on that day? From your point of view.
From my point of view, that morning we were getting ready. Ryan Blackwell was assistant coach at our high school for wrestling, and I coached there. And with Ryan, he gives us a call prior to meeting at our meet point with the team, and he tells me that he won't be able to make it. As a matter of fact, calm as it was, I thought he was joking. Once he told me that he was involved in a shooting, and told me he was pretty messed up, but he sounded like everything was going to be okay, and he told us the team good luck, and he'll talk to us after.
That was December 6th, a Friday. At what time of the day?
That was early morning. I don't necessarily recall that time. It was maybe like 6 something he may, or 7. He called me 7:30. We were meeting at the local Walmart, like I said, and I was en route to meet the team. And
the team are the kids, 8 to 18 years of age in your wellness fitness program?
In that program, that it is the team that we were at was with the high school team, so it's freshman through senior. But that was a tough situation when I got there, and knowing that I had to take the team and kind of notify some of the other coaches of what had happened, and that Ryan wouldn't be with us. So that day, our team wrestled for him, knowing that he was in ICU and getting taken care of.
So you met up with him when he got out, and you watched his recovery for the 6 months thereafter.
His recovery was rough, and it actually ended up a lot better than I anticipated, knowing how he was condition-wise. His spirits are nothing but were up there, but day in, day out, I would check on him, and it was kind of my duty, just as to be like a big brother. And I kind of promised his father that I'm local, so I would take care of it, and the best I could.
Well, we've heard from Ryan that it was a long, copious process for recovery, but boy, I'm glad he's with us today, and I'm glad you're here to share that part of the story.
Right.
Any comments on?
No, what I thought I'd become a big brother. I'm really just a follower of his now.
Yeah.
Without getting emotional, stand-up dude, and he motivates me, and it keeps me right. So it's good stuff.
I'm going to ask Ryan this question, but how many of the military, as you see them today, and NAS Pensacola is a good example of a training environment where you're looking for good leaders. How many leaders stood up that day to help come step up for Ryan, and how many were impotent or incompetent or lackadaisical in their ability to respond to an immediate, what I'd call terrorist crisis here in Pensacola, Florida, on the NAS Pensacola facility?
I think the leadership from a local area, maybe from outside of NAS Pensacola, with Escambia County, our community in Gulf Breeze and the wrestling, the leadership in that, it was outstanding. The leadership on how the whole situation was handled in regards to not just Ryan Blackwell, but all the airmen and those that were involved. I think, lackluster. It just wasn't good. They could have done a lot better. There's a lot of things that,
Well, thank you for participating in what we're doing today, because that's why we're doing it. We felt that more should come out on it because it was a lackluster response and a lackluster acknowledgement of a true American hero who's done an awful lot to save other lives on that event, on that day of December 6th, 2019. Austin, Sergeant,
right.
Thank you for joining
Thanks,
us.
man. Appreciate you.
Gene Valentino's GrassRoots podcast. He tells the truth. He tries to get information out there to make sure people make good, informed decisions.
Welcome back to the GrassRoots TruthCast and our special report today with Purple Heart recipient Ryan Blackwell. We've had the last 50 minutes of an expose on someone who's, in my eyes, a true hero and is a reflection of the capability and the efficiency and the credit that's due to the military for the good training, the good disciplines, the patriotism that allows all of us to forge forward and continue our mission. In Ryan's case, he did it with 6 bullets in him, and he ended up in the Baptist hospital, and we're now approaching the recovery phase in our documentary and special report with Ryan Blackwell. Hey, superstar.
Sir,
Thank you for coming today. I appreciate your service. I appreciate your dad's service. We had Austin Elliott on a minute ago. I appreciate his service. He was on the Marine side. You Navy Marine guys, you're still getting along okay?
We do. They use us for rides, you know, so.
They use you for rides.
It works. Good balance.
You carry the bags once in a while, huh?
You know.
Well, in this case, someone was carrying your bags. I don't know how you did it. And so on that note, we ended up at Baptist Hospital.
Correct.
You went into the emergency room and you were immediately treated and you got into an immediate CAT scan. You came out and now they know what you've got inside you and you had time to call your wife.
So correct. So like I went through the CAT scan. I'm sitting in ICU now, waiting for those results to come back. I made the call to Coach Austin, and then I was like, hey, where's my wife at? And then they said, oh, she's in the lobby. So they brought her back into the room to see me. And, there was no cleanup effort as far as I'm getting ready to go into surgery, so there's blood all over me. And she gets to see really, it's like how I looked, There was no cleaning up any of a mess. It was, I had the arm on my head. There's blood all down my head, my face. They were worried I got shot in my head because I had so much blood all over me.
That's because you were holding your arm up.
Because I was elevating my arm up. And, then we're just kind of sitting there. And then I ended up made a couple other phone calls as I was waiting, called my buddy Kevin Lace and let him kind of know what was going on. We had a funny interaction as far as is there anything you need, and you would think yeah, man, I need some clothes. They just took everything I had.
Now, wait a minute now. You're talking with Kevin Lace. He's the author of American Sniper?
No, he is the author of The Last Punisher. He's Chris Kyle's buddy, who's the American Sniper.
American Sniper. He's the author of Last Punisher, but he wasn't Lace a Navy SEAL?
He was also, correct, he was a team guy, and since then he's a motivational speaker and a father and a husband and a physician's assistant, and he has a lot of different accolades to his name, but he's a veteran, he's a patriot, and he was a guy in a time of crisis that responded as well.
And typical of most that don't wear these episodes on their sleeve, it's not like you're on some talking circuit going through this, ladies and gentlemen. We had to reach out and find this story. The problem I have is there are so many wonderful patriots, true heroes, that have served and are serving in our nation's military, all branches of service. And we find out when they come out of service that they're the most humble, discreet, and they're the farthest thing from being outspoken about some of these issues. Some have taken these issues and these stories to their grave and not spoken to anybody about them. I'm glad you're here with us today, Ryan Blackwell, to explain this to us and to maybe remind folks thinking of the military of the importance, the standards, the discipline, and the honor it is to serve. And that that's the purpose of today's event, as much as it is about your event in particular, and honoring you for this, for what you've been through that has, unfortunately, in most eyes, gone unnoticed. I've heard an awful lot about 9/11. I haven't heard much since December 6th, 2019, about the terrorist event that day. And I'd like to circle back on some of those thoughts and your observations and reflections as we close. Before we get there, let's continue the discussion with your in the hospital.
Yeah, so me and my wife are in the ICU, and then the surgeon and a chaplain comes in, and then they tell me that I'm going to need
The chaplain.
the chaplain from the base, from my command, and then the surgeon who's going to perform surgery on me. They come to my room, and the surgeon tells me that we're going to need to have emergency surgery. The bullets ricocheted through my body. They severed my large intestine, and I was going to have a colostomy bag. And so I'm kind of taking that all in real quick, and I just asked him, I said, what's a colostomy bag? And he's like, we're going to divert your large intestine out of your stomach, and that's how you're going to go to the bathroom. And we don't know if that's going to be permanent or if it's going to be temporary. We'll have to, wait and see what happens over time. And they just said a prayer. They prayed with me, and they wheeled me into the OR. And I just, I ended up coming out, and I had.
How long was the surgery?
I'm not sure how long it was. I know I got like 3 blood transfusions while I was in there. They rolled me after, I was in ICU for a little bit. I had my right arm, my right nerve, my median nerve in my right arm. I had median nerve paralysis. So I'm still dealing with that today, but it's gotten a lot better with just some treatments and remedies that I've kind of underwent in the last 5 years of my recovery. The colostomy bag I had for 4 months, and then I was able to get it reversed. And
Very good.
Yeah, it was a very humbling experience as far as kind of being a prisoner of my own body, and being somebody that kind of, a college athlete, and
6 months of recovery.
It was 6 months of just that initial shock, recovery, and then it doesn't the mental impression and lingering. The lingering wounds, that you get over time, or the spasms or this or that, especially with something that's neurological. Some of those, it's like electrical impulses that you feel all the time. Some days they're a little bit more stimulated than others, So there was just like a constant humbling experience every day, but I feel like it was something that I was the right guy for the job for, in a sense of being able to make my way being comfortable, uncomfortable, and that was kind of what I had to do. Going through like once I had gotten home and I'm starting to try to get on the mend of things, for the first 2 months I couldn't sleep. I had a hospital chair, it was donated to me because I had to sleep in a chair. And so I just like kind of started reflecting on the experience and like kind of how fragile life was, and just like something that just really tugged at me was like my impact, my legacy, and I didn't have no kids.
You were newly married, right?
I was newly married that March 14th.
Before December 2019.
Yep, March 14th, 2019, we got married. And, shortly after that, like Carly now becomes like a home nurse for me. And, we're just kind of talking about life and this and that. And, and I have a daughter now, Raina. So that's the, that kind of takes care of all those. That's my impact to the world. That's my legacy. That's everything. But even outside of that, when I start looking at what can I do more, just a sense of giving back is kind of like what has really overcome. I feel like my ego has left the building when you go through something like that, and you kind of start looking at things from a different perspective. And I was like, how was I able to pull this off? I was 8 feet away. I got shot 6 times. My intestines were leaking out. I had to get 3 blood transfusions. I had to go on for 27 minutes like this. Like, how was I able to do that? And the only thing that I could think of outside of God himself was that I was well-trained. And that I had just different life experiences that made me well-trained. And, and it kind of dates back to when I was in my amateur career of wrestling in high school. When I was winning my state titles in high school, me and my dad used to joke about like our home garage gym. We call it well-trained. Wouldn't it be cool to have something big like that? So that always kind of stuck in my brain. But now, like going through this event, it really created more meaning and value to it. And being Blackwell is my last name, well-trained just had a good play on words. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to start making a website. I'm going to pass some of my time to do something productive. And well-trained ended up turning into a youth wrestling facility that's located in Gulf Breeze, Florida, where we impact kids from 3 years old all the way to your college.
Oh, my.
Graduates. We help kids get college scholarships. We really try to create that impact, And
you've even assisted amateur and pro wrestlers, pro fighters, boxers for their tune-up, if you will.
Correct. Yeah, wrestling's a big kind of a big skill set to want to have in the mixed martial arts game. And even just having some basic knowledge of it will help you in positions. And and we do work a lot with those guys as well. So just really trying to just like give back to what gave so much to me, and that was wrestling. And that's really like what molded my mindset, you know. And then from there, I had other life experiences. I was an ocean lifeguard. You know, I went through some rigorous training throughout the military. And so there was a lot of different things that just compiled on top of each other. And on that day, it provided me what I needed to do, you know, a clear mind, and, you know, I was able to kind of execute what I needed to do.
Well, on those kinds of days, you find the sincere elected officials also stepping up too. I remember Governor Ron DeSantis and Senator Rick Scott being at your bedside right after the operation.
They did, and it was kind of a humbling experience as well, having those guys come.
What'd you think? What did they renew your patriotism? Did they renew you must have had some depressing moments, some depression issues that were consuming you in the 6 months after the hospital?
I think the biggest thing was like, I just had a key word, and I would just tell myself every day, and it was beat yesterday. So that kind of helped me not feel sad. Like I didn't like experience the survivor's guilt or any of that. I was more like upset that that somebody tried to take my life, and I wanted like revenge. That's where I kind of went. And I was still in like fight or flight or freeze. I was still in fight mode, it seemed like I was still, and then being a competitor and, you know, wrestling at the NCAA level, you know, a Division II athlete at University of North Carolina at Pembroke. Yeah, it really kind of, it motivated me, you know what I mean, to want to, this guy tried to take me off the face of this earth, you know? So every day that I do something, every day that I create an impact, every day that I help somebody else is a day that I win and a day that that guy loses, and his mission is never accomplished, you know? So that's kind of how I started to look at it in a sense of that impact and that legacy. What do I want that to be? You know, what do I want that to be? At 27 years old when I got shot, I don't know what my impact or my legacy would have been after that, you know. Yeah. But now that as I move forward, we have the business and I have my family. We just created the Ryan Blackwell Foundation to help promote health, wellness, leisure, and recreation.
Yeah, explain that in more detail. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that kind of as we're, you know, with my recovery, the biggest thing that helped with my mental fortitude through the recovery was getting in shape. Creating outlets for myself, as far as like if it was other veterans that I would tag along with me, whether it was like equine therapy, a fishing trip, going to a national park, just getting outside, being active, being able to talk about your experiences. And that really kind of helped me combat the real battlefield that I had going inside, which was my mind. And it wasn't the fact of the sorrow, it was the anger, and I didn't want that to ever portray to my family or to my friends, so I wanted to get that in check. And I was able to do that with those outlets. So with the Ryan Blackwell Foundation, our goal is to promote health, wellness, leisure, and recreational opportunities. And it's not just for vets that are experiencing trauma, it's for youth, veterans, and members of the community. So whether we're putting on a wrestling tournament for the local youth kids, or if we're helping out with the triathlons that happen in the community, or other different fitness or recreational outlets, whether it's a golf outing or equine therapy visit, I want to be able to have a platform to provide those opportunities to those in need. And that is what kind of got me through that recovery of not really reflecting on this guy's mission, but more so like, I guess I took more of how I responded versus how I reacted, you know, and the difference between those being is how you respond to something is what's muscle memory to you. How you react to something is what's impulse and emotion, you know?
That's right.
And so being able to respond the way that I did, it just really kind of encapsulate just as whole of who I am as a human being, you know, and some of us may never find out what we're capable of, you know, to our full potential or what that means, but on that day, on December 6th, you know, and knowing that December 7th wasn't an option if I didn't get through the next 27 minutes of my life and do the right things, you know, that really put things into perspective for me, you know, and it makes me thankful. I'm very grateful. I'm grateful for any opportunity, any experiences that I may get, good or bad, because I know they build me as a human being.
So that's how you were managing your wellness.
Right.
And your giving back to the community means an awful lot. The foundation and the website, again, people can go to contribute.
So our foundation website is ryanblackwell.foundation. And if
Okay.
you, with our wrestling, where we do different things like that, where we travel and we can help, we do like little seminars for other wrestling programs across the country. That's welltrainedelite.com. We actually have a big camp, coming up here this summer where we're bringing in top tier clinicians, and it's something really special for the kids. So we're just trying to, just keep moving forward, keep positive, keep spreading positivity and helping kids out, helping anybody out, really.
Okay, so Ryan didn't bring it up, but I'm going to. You were discharged from service honorably because of your medical condition, but the medical condition you were discharged for was an incident long before the shooting on December 6th, 2019. The real issue to me is that while you're proud to be an American, a patriot, and in this case, a hero, a recipient of the Purple Heart, you were denied benefits based on the events of that day. The military, in its reckless bureaucracy, and you correct me if I'm misspeaking, because this is my opinion, the military in their reckless bureaucracy ended up trying to label you with benefits or disability based on a prior smaller incident that had happened that was truly not as egregious as what you went through. And so as a result, it doesn't reflect the 6 shots you took to your body for which you're now being recognized for. But you should have been, and you should have been by the bureaucracy of the military as well. And I think we need to establish a writing campaign to reverse the benefits settlement that was offered you. You were in the midst of so much emotion at the time. Give me the damn thing, I'll take it and get out of there. You wanted to move on with your life. Most of the world didn't know just how much of a hero you were that day in saving lives. And most of the world doesn't know that you were denied the medical benefits that you should have been awarded. Boy, if anyone in our listening, viewing audience has access to Tunnel to Towers, we need to get Frank Siller online here and make sure he has an introduction to Ryan Blackwell. Ryan, I also found out something else that you haven't mentioned. So John F. Kennedy was awarded the Purple Heart, but he was also awarded the Navy and Marine Corps the Medal of Heroism. No other military officer, no other military E3 has been awarded that designation since John F. Kennedy, until Ryan Blackwell came along. He's been decorated with these 2 honors, and the same 2 honors given to our former President John F. Kennedy, a legend unto himself. And we'd be remiss if we didn't step up now to make sure, whether you want the honor and notoriety, that's one thing, that's up to you. But we at least want you taken care of to the same standard other military heroes have. And it's my commitment to help you get that.
Thank you. But yeah, the biggest thing, I remember I mentioned I was going through the medical board for the wrist, and that's what put me with the International Military Training Office.
Yes.
So that's how I was going through my med board, and so I had been found I was going to be medically retired from my wrist fusion. There's a disqualifying factor for the aviation side that I was there for, and
Was that the issue, or your wrist fusion?
It was my wrist fusion at first was the issue. They had fused my wrist, and I was earlier in the career, but regardless, so I signed and accepted the findings, and then I got shot right after that. So as I was going through my 6 months of convalescent and recovery, we were trying to get an addendum of the gunshot wounds onto the medical board, and they told me that I couldn't because I had already signed the medical board.
All right, wait a minute. So you were in transition, which is what put you in NAS Pensacola in the first place.
Correct. And then I was on my transition to get out of the Navy. And so I was getting ready to get out. I got shot at like right when I was about to get out. So I was still active duty. So then it made it that I don't know. It was just really just a complex situation that could have maybe had a simple solution to it, or maybe it was somebody that just didn't know what to do, or there's a lot of other things, underlying issues going on. I'm not sure, but I do know that I got discharged for 2018 injuries, training related. And I was told that I could get my gunshot wounds and all that later on there or something like that, that they couldn't do an addendum. And so I proceeded to get discharged off my 2018 medical board findings, which still medically retired me, except I didn't get medically retired for getting shot 6 times. I got medically retired for having broken bones in my wrist. And so when you look at my discharge paperwork, it doesn't reflect that my medical retirement is due to 6 gunshot wounds. My 2019, it's because of a 2018 incident. So it's almost like the 2019 didn't happen, but it did happen because I was awarded the Purple Heart due to it being a terrorist attack, and I was awarded Navy and Marine Corps Medal for heroism based upon those actions. But outside of that, it was kind of like that. I don't really think they knew what to do, to be honest. So it's not that I hold really hard feelings towards anybody in a situation of that, because that goes against what I'm doing right now to impact the world anyways, so.
Well, the record shows that I brought it up, not you.
No, it's great. No, it's great. I appreciate that. But yeah, just to clear the air though, yeah, it was definitely, it probably should have been, like you said, I should have been discharged based on what was recent, but just the way that it went, and then improper filing of paperwork, or not enough information had denied some of the medical benefits that I was warranted. Putting a week of something instead of 30 days of something will definitely get it denied.
Yeah.
And just different things like that, to where I'm focused on my recovery and trying to heal from 6 gunshot wounds. And you're supposed to have the leadership on the backside that's handling this for you. And let's be honest, it wasn't just me that the ball was dropped on. There was a lot of others that were affected as well. And but the just got to keep pressing forward.
So pressing forward, how's Raina and Carly handling all this?
They're good. Like my wife definitely had to, I don't want to say step up, but she definitely stepped up as far as just taking on roles that were just unbeknownst to her, and just stuff like, helping with my colostomy bag, because my right arm was paralyzed. So I couldn't use my right arm at the time, and my fingers were barely functioning on my right arm. And so, now it's kind of better, a little bit crooked, but I can move them. They still tingle, but it's getting better. But she had to help me with that stuff, and then, fast forward a little bit, our daughter comes into the world, and she turns 3, this year, and now stepping up and being kind of like a stay-at-home mom, raising our daughter, while I'm kind of like an entrepreneur running a business, and trying to make the world a better place. And so they're definitely my beacon of light. At the end of the day, they're ones that drive me to do what I do, and to continue to work hard.
And he's keeping busy with his operation in Gulf Breeze, well-trained wrestling.
Yeah.
And with all those good things at hand, you're staying busy, and busy's probably the best thing for you, not to mention a good diet and a good family and good friends. We've been talking for this last hour with Ryan Blackwell, Purple Heart recipient, and a Marine Corps and Navy Medal of Heroism recipient as well, just like former President John F. Kennedy. Ryan, any closing comments or thoughts for the people?
I appreciate you having me on, and I look forward to continuing to work together.
Well, working together we will. We'd like to look at all the other folks that have drifted off into their own worlds and gone into back to their normal ways of life, like military is accustomed to do. But we should not leave behind the story and what it means to us. Fast forward, folks, here we are in May of 2024, and we have Saudi Arabia, who was right on the verge of having a good relationship in place with Israel. That relationship being breached by Iran-backed Houthis and Hamas, causing 1,300 people to be massacred last October 2023. And since then, we have a need to renew our friendship with the Saudis. The Saudis, like the Americans, have bad actors, and we need to clean house of those bad actors and develop good alliances worldwide, not only with Israel, but with the Saudis and the other major players in this world to save our republic, our constitutional republic here in the United States of America. Ryan Blackwell was with me here today, helping me explain why it's so important to do so. And thank you all for joining us for another episode on Gene Valentino's GrassRoots TruthCast. See you again soon.